Okay, here we go. So what we're going to talk about now is muscle physiology. So all this training that you do on the outside, you see the sweat, you see the sacrifice, but you don't ever get to see what happens inside the microscopic cell. So we're just going to talk about an overview of what exists and what occurs. Now, physiology, as I alluded to last night, is the study of biology as it relates to humans. So what we're looking at is chemistry, biology, and physics. It is the study of normal processes in the body. We want to know cause-effect. If I run for a mile, what happens to the inside of my body? What happens to circulation? What happens to the nervous system? What happens to a cell? If I take a drug, what happens to my physiology? So most physiology is based on medicine. So we have tiers of human abilities and statuses. So we have the general population, or the study of normal physiology. So that is here. That is, how do we keep people healthy? And then we have like medical physiology. How do I take someone from below good health and bring them up to health? And then we have what we call sport physiology. How do we take someone who's healthy or above average in health and make them very healthy, or physiologically superior to the rest of the world? So that's what we do. We try to manipulate the body to be better than everybody else. And so that is what sport physiology is. It's advanced biology. It's pretty interesting what we do. Now, as you may know, we have 3 different types of muscle classifications within the body. We are going to talk exclusively today about skeletal muscle. It is voluntary. We tell it what to do, and it does it. So the muscular system is simply a leverage system. The muscles are bands that pull at various intensities on the bone to make the skeletal system move. That's all our muscles do. They're just ropes attached to these sticks we call bones. That's all we do. Now, this slide represents an entire book. So we're not going to get too in-depth with this at all. I just want you to understand when we talk about why a muscle cell is multinucleated and how do we restructure a protein after exercise. It all starts here. So the birth of a muscle cell. We start off with these things called myoblasts. So myoblasts are these little proteins that don't have a specific definition. They can do different tasks. They can turn into different things, different proteins. But when we need them, when we exercise, we cause trauma to the body, to the muscle cells. These myoblasts can actually fuse into a myotube, which then in turn into a muscle cell. They can actually attach to a muscle cell too to help it regrow. So there's a growth and development, a process to how fibers grow. And I just wanted to give you a snapshot of how that works. Now, this is the ultrastructure. So this would be the bone, the tendon, the connective tissue at which the muscle pulls the bone through, and an entire muscle unit, and we keep tearing it apart until we get a fasciculi down to a muscle fiber, which we also call myofibril. And within the myofibril, we can even go smaller to a sarcomere, and then we can go smaller. So it's big protein to medium-sized protein to small to medium protein to small protein to very small protein to microscopic protein. It's just our body is one big piece in many, many layers. Within a muscle fiber, within a muscle cell, you have this membrane that encapsulates it. It makes it one unit. So at various levels of the body, you have these membranes to separate muscle cells from one another, muscle units from one another, and then muscles from other muscles. Okay. What's interesting for you to note is that within this sarcolemma, or inside this muscle membrane, are satellite cells. So satellite cells are going to be things that help recover the muscle. This would be stem cells. Anybody familiar with stem cells? So stem cells, like we're doing research on that, and that's a huge debate. Do we use stem cells for research to help us regrow or fight disease? But we know that stem cells, they're more active in the youth, they're more concentrated in the youth, and they proliferate more in the youth. As we get older, our stem cells are slower and we don't have as many. So the quest for youth is basically to steal someone else's stem cells. That'll keep you young. They're inside within the muscle, like in the fiber, in the muscle cell. So they're little cells that actually help recover. And so this is within. So if this is a muscle cell, this is the membrane that prevents all that fluid from leaking out. This would be like a satellite cell. And this can go in here and help recover this. Okay? So that's what it is. But the satellite cells, what they do is whenever there's trauma, through cellular signaling, they go in and say, okay, we need to reform a protein, or we need to actually grow a new protein entirely. So that's their job. So the reason I bring this up is to not give you a comprehensive overview of training and physiology, but it's to suggest that if we understand that stem cells and recovery and regeneration is faster in the youth and slower as we age, what do you think that means for an older athlete? Do we need to be better in our recovery patterns, or treat them the same as a 16-year-old? Give more recovery, right? So, again, you have to understand why the body feels slower as you age. And then you make those decisions in your training program. And this is the overview of that. And this goes back to that first slide. Things that occur is that creation of a new myotube. So if you have severe damage, like say eccentric training, like I was talking about, very slow on the way down and then explode on the way up, that's going to cause severe trauma. The proteins are basically going to break apart. You have the immune system come in and eat that apart and break it down and take the waste away. The myotubes are actually going to resynthesize and create a new protein, a new muscle fiber in its place. Day-to-day training, what occur is what we call hypertrophy, or as actually a muscle gets bigger. There's a little bit of trauma to a muscle fiber, and then those satellite cells actually attach to it and allow it to grow bigger. That's where we get that additional nucleus of a muscle cell. So you know that a nucleus is kind of like the house, the brain of a cell. That is, again, a muscle cell has many nuclei, and that's because of the fusion of these satellite cells onto that existing protein. So that is the reason why, the underlying mechanism. Now, if we continue to look through a microscope at a skeletal muscle, we're going to see something we call a sarcomere. So a sarcomere is made up of myofibrils, or sarcomeres make up myofibrils, and sarcomeres are made up of myofilaments. So it's all these crazy terms just to call proteins big or little. So a sarcomere is something we say is the smallest acting, contracting unit of a muscle. And it's made up of things called actin and myosin. And you can think of this as an accordion. It gets smaller and bigger. It just goes in and out, in and out. And so you have billions of these throughout the body, and that's why you can see massive movements. Because at the cellular level, you're just having this contraction and relaxation occur between these little proteins.
It's a unit? So
yes.
It's contraction. All of these should contract.
Yes.
One of them.
One of this is little tiny. And then one of them is right here, and then another one right there. So within one muscle cell, you have many sarcomere. And so they're all contracting at the same time. And that's why then you have many muscle fibers or muscle cells contracting at the same time. That's why you have holistic movement here. And so again, just a magnified view. Within a sarcomere, we call the proteins that run vertically Z-lines. So the Z-line is kind of what defines the sarcomere. It's the walls between here and here. And then attached to these walls, running this way, is a protein. And then from the middle is another protein running out that way. And the idea is that these proteins actually interact. And they pull on each other to make that protein wall come together. And so that's what we've got to figure out, like, how does that happen?